video is part of the Iron Orchid Designs Holiday Collection Release playlist. If you want to see other videos from the playlist, please click the link in the description below. Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Shannon and I'm with Creating with Shannon at Pick a Boots. Okay, so here is the fairy door and the very new transfer, one of the Christmas transfers called Fairy Merry Christmas. This one is just so whimsical, so cute. The detail is amazing. The first thing I thought of when I saw this transfer is that I needed to put one on the fairy door. I know it doesn't really make sense to put a fairy on a door, but I just had to do it. So I flipped through the little booklet of transfers and I found the one that I thought would best fit this door. So I used my little transfer tool and I rubbed it on. For some reason the video deleted, but I made sure I got all the little crevices. Now I'm going back here and I'm rubbing it in and making sure it's going to stick because there's all kinds of different crevices and edges and you can see it cracked, which is fine. It just adds a little bit more to the look that I'm going for. So now that I have the transfer on, I'm going to go ahead and seal it. That way there is no chance of it coming off. So I'm just using some clear coat and making sure I'm covering the entire transfer. After this, I'm going to use a little bit of antiquing gel because I want to highlight some of the wood of the door. So I'm just simply going to use my little brush here and I'm going to apply it just to the parts of this door that have that are part of a tree. So I put it on and then just use a paper towel and I kind of wipe it back. This antiquing gel just adds another layer of depth for me on these pieces. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to the part of the door. There are, if you look closely, there are the little decorative hinges that are on the door. So I'm just going to take some wax paste and I'm just going to kind of just highlight just to give it a little bit of depth and separate it from the fairy. So now that I have this part done, I'm trying to decide what I want to do with it. It's so cute, but what do I put it on? So I guess I decided that I would just make a wood panel and then just kind of make a scene and then go from there. So what I did is I grabbed just a wood panel that is, I think it's about, 9 by 11. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a nice coat of white, the primer, just to make sure that whatever I do put on here, it will stick. Seeing that it is a fairy and she is in a tree door, I thought a good idea would be to get a stencil and run some texture through it so my background will look like it is part of a tree. So I run it through the stencil and lift it up and look, so it looks like bark. And I'm going to continue the stencil across until I cover the entire board. And it doesn't have to be perfect, so as I pick it up and move it, it's okay if it smudges or smears a little bit on the other part of the bark because it's going to be covered with other elements and it's going to definitely be painted. I love using texture in the background. I just think it adds so much more to your project. Okay, so look at this panel now. I've got the tree bark all over it, so it's going to be perfect. So now it is time to paint. I'm going to go ahead and paint it a brown. Of course, I have to use a shimmer brown because it just adds a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and cover the entire thing in this shimmer brown. And then once this dries, I'm going to come back and I'm going to use a little bit of gold gilding. I think the gold gilding on here will make the tree bark pop. I'm not going to put it on the whole entire part. I'm just going to put it on the raised part of the tree. I went ahead and put the door on here just so I could see what it looked like. So the gold really blends well with the door. So I'm going to go ahead and put as much gold on as I feel it needs, trying to make sure I stick to just the bark. Okay, let's look and see how the door looks with how I have the bark. Okay, so look, it blends perfectly. All right, so now I have it set to the left side, but I need something on the right side. So I figured that the frames mold would be perfect. What I wanted to do, my first thought was maybe to like make it a window up in the upper right corner because it could be like a house. So I went ahead and I just carved out and made just, the bottom part of the frame so it would look like a window. And so I'm just gonna make sure it fits here and see what it looks like. I like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a paint. Next, I will go ahead and glue it into place. I'm just gonna use some heavy body gel because I know that that will not come off, but it'll also go into the grooves of the tree bark. So after I lay it down, I kind of play with it, make sure that I have it perfect just the way I want it. Now I need to decide what goes in the window. So while I'm thinking about that, I'm going to go ahead and commit, and I'm going to use a heavy body gel also and glue my fairy door on my panel. So it's looking good so far. Now I've decided that I need to paint the inside of the window, so I'm just using a nice soft neutral beige color. So while we're waiting for the beige to dry, I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and add some moss, because at the base of most trees, especially in the forest, there is moss at the base of trees. So I'm just kind of spreading this moss paste around the bottom and just haphazardly around, so it makes it look like it is authentic and not forced. And we all know that moss is not just one color, so I'm going to go back and use the light moss paste, and I'm just going to blend it in a little bit. And I'm just going to put some here, put some there, thicker, thinner, and just to create a nice moss look. Now for the true moss paste to work, you just heat it with the heat gun, and what it does, it kind of bubbles up a little bit and it appears to look more like moss than paint. So after I do that, I think I need some more. So I run the moss up the side of the door and then up to the top of the tree. So I add a little bit more of the green and then some more of the light green, and then I will give it a little bit of heat. And if you look real closely, you can see it working. Look at this, see the bubbles on the left side? That is just simply amazing. So this adds just another layer of texture to this panel. I'm going to go ahead and dust the moss with a little bit of brown paint just to give it more of a depth and more of shading to this piece. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, so on the next part, I'm going to add just a little bit of the transfer. I feel that the beige needs a little bit, so I just snipped part of one of the transfers off, part that I might not use of one of the bigger fairies, and I put it in the window, and I'm just going to make sure it stays by rubbing it on. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of fun. We're going to make some mushrooms from the Toadstool Mould, and we're going to prime them, and then I'm going to use some gray paint just for the stems and underneath to shade, and then I'm going to do the tops with a metallic green just for fun. Once I get them painted, I'm going to use some heavy body gel, and I am going to stick them into place. Normally I like to paint my stuff before I put it down, just because when it's already down and glued, sometimes it's really hard to get the edge without getting your bottom part. So I go ahead and paint them, then glue them on, and now sometimes the paint will come off, but that's okay. It's easy to go ahead and touch up the part that you touched rather than try to get that line next to your surface, and you don't have to worry about smearing paint anywhere. So I'll just touch that up with a little bit of the green, and then I'm going to use some gold gilding wax. The gold gilding wax is just going to touch on the parts that stick up of the detail of the mushrooms. I'm going to put it on the stems, and I'm also going to put it on the top of the mushrooms. Next, I'm going to use it on the framed window part, and just look at how it makes those details pop. I just love it. So now I think that we need to shade a little bit of the moss in because it looks too forced. So I'm just taking a little bit of green paint and shading around the side of the moss. And now I feel like there needs to be some more moss to balance the other side of the panel. So I'm going to use my dark green. Then I'm going to come back in with the light green. Then I'll use the heat gun to make it bubble and look more natural. If you like these videos, please consider subscribing. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be notified every time I post a new video. So I'm not thinking that that really looks like a window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write fairy in on it, because to me it looks kind of like a sign. So I'm taking a Sharpie and I'm going to write fairy in. Next, I think I need to put the panel in something. So I grabbed the wood gallery blank from Iron Orchid Designs. I think it's a 11 by 14. And I just framed the back end with some gold because it makes the design pop. Now I want to put some trim or some kind of clay around the edge, so I decided to use this one. And when you put your clay in and you use your palette knife, look how easy that comes off, and then just pop it out. Now I'm going to need probably about 4 of these. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run it around the edge. See how I just tie it together? So I'll go ahead and I'll make a few more. And then I'll just take my wood glue and then I will glue them into place. But before I do that, I need to commit and I need to put the heavy body gel, and I'm going to put my little panel inside of the wood gallery blank and make sure it's just perfect. So now I'm going to add the wood glue and I'm going to stick the trim on. And what's nice about the trimmings is it's meant to connect. So where the ends meet, the next one takes over, and so you can make it as long as you want, and it just blends together. So what I'll do here, I'll just curve it around the edge, trying not to pull too much, because if you tend to pull the clay, you can create an area where when it dries, it will separate or crack. There we have it. So there it is. Now, I don't like the natural wood. At first I thought I would, but after I added the air dry clay, I decided I needed to paint it. So I went in and painted a shimmer brown, and look, it is just beautiful. Not typically something that I make, but I thought, why not? It was fun, and I really enjoyed doing this project. Love the new Fairy Marys. Even though it's not Christmas, it doesn't have to be for Christmas. Thanks for watching.